Hello, behind me is all the parts for the horizontal stabilizer of my aircraft. That's like the wing across the back, the horizontal wing at the very back of the aircraft. The plan is to assemble all these bits, clicker them together according to the manual, following the manual and the drawings, and then drill them out to final size, and then take it all apart, deburr all the rough edges that creates, and then reassemble it and, prime it, paint all the mating surfaces to protect that from corrosion, and then reassemble it, and then start putting rivets into all the holes and stick it together. Let's do it. I find myself cleaning all these parts. That's sawdust. My garage has a dust problem, mad dust problem. It's got literally 4 or 5 years now of woodwork projects just done in this garage thing, routing out of wood, drilling, cutting, everything. And sawdust has just gone everywhere. If you just take the air compressor and the blowgun to start dusting things off, you'll have a cloud of dust in here. And that's what's ended up on all my parts already. So I'm starting off by just wiping them all down, getting all this dust off before I stick them back together. If there's too much dust, it'll hold all the parts apart when I cleco them and then drill the holes. So then when I put it back together, it's not going to mate as well as it should if there's all these dust particles in between it. So I'm going to start by wiping everything off before I start clecoing things back together. With the cleaning out of the way, let's get these spar top and bottom doublers put into the spar. This is the front spar, so looking at the horizontal stabilizer drawings, that's this one going across here, and it's not so obvious in here, but there's a doubler running from about there up to here on both the top edge and the bottom edge, just to stiffen those up. So those are these L angles here, and so they simply sit in there and in there. So I'll go ahead and cleco that in, and the same thing happens for the rear spar. So this spar here, these 2 doublers here, again along the top and the bottom. So let's do that. Holding things together temporarily, you don't have to put a cleco in every hole. The manual says every second hole, but realistically it depends what you're doing. When you've got big long pieces like this, then every second hole is going to be more than enough. All you're needing to do is to keep all the holes in between lined up. So the more complicated your part, or if it's being twisted or pulled in any direction, then you're going to want to put more of these in. But if you've just got a long, clean run that's just needs held there and everything's going to line up anyway, then every few holes is more than enough. You can easily see that they're all lining up. So easy enough. Saves me putting in a few and taking out a few unnecessarily. I've got it all laid out now. Got the rear spar with the doublers clecoed in, and the front spar with the doublers clecoed in, and then I've laid out the ribs. These ones that are going to go in the middle, and then there's some tip ribs over there. But I'll stand these up and cleco on these 4 ribs that go in the middle. And to do that, you can look at the diagram here. This is one of the rear ribs, and you can see, so taking the directions there, so that way's forward, and if I grab one of these, we'll be able to look at this curve down the bottom and figure out which way that curve actually goes, because obviously these it matters which way it goes. That curve isn't uniform, so it's got to be the right way, and referencing the diagrams is definitely worthwhile. Saying that, these have a curve, or sorry, not a curve, a bend on one side. So you see how that's bent out more, that's not 90 degrees, whereas this one is. So this is actually the top, and that's the bottom there. So this bend here lines up or runs into the curve of these ribs. Anyway, let's just stand it up and stick it together. It's not that complicated. Next up is to put these leading edge ribs in, and they go in a little bit of backtracking. These outer two ones go in the same holes as these rear ribs, and you can see that looking at the drawings here. So this is the front here, so these are these pieces here. The center one's on its own line, but these ones here and here share a rivet with the rear ribs as well. So let's take them off and put them in. So there's three of them to go down. That one in the middle, and its own holes there, and the other one also needs to go in the same holes as the rear rib. So let's do that. This is one of the tip ribs, the tip rib on the right side, I think. And it's to go in here like that, and then up in there. So there's this piece, this little L angle, and this is actually a labelled part, a manufactured part. Comes like this, comes pre-drilled. And in the drawings you'll see that little angle here is 75T1-6. Just taking the label off, but in the construction guide it refers to it as just a standard L angle, which also in the drawings you'll see. So this is the tip rib, so that's the tip rib going down there, and in there that part just labelled L. Normally it would be labelled with an actual part number if it had a part number, but it seems that it eventually became a part that they manufactured and included in the kit. However, when I was going through the construction manual, I couldn't find these parts in my kit. Obviously later they turned up, but I had actually fabricated out of what seems to be a standard L angle, basically the same thing. So you'll see, very similar part. It would have just gone on there, very much the same. But I think I'm going to, from what I can see, the part that comes manufactured is slightly thicker. So I'm going to go with that one, but it's also slightly smaller in the dimensions. So you'll see there my part extends quite a bit higher and quite a bit lower as well, and a bit wider. So while I could trim it down, what's the point? It's already cut. So I'm just going to go back and use them and just go on the script bin, I suppose. taking out one cleco at a time from these 3 holes and running this number 30 drill through them. And it almost fits already, but it's just bringing it up to the final size necessary for the A3 rivets and taking one cleco out at a time so that the rest is holding it dead in line, while when final sizing the holes, then it's matching the holes on one side to, in this case, the L bracket on the other side. So it's drilling them together and making sure that all the holes line up. Just cut out 4 blocks out of one of the planks from the crate, and these blocks are to go along this trailing spar, and they sit in there like that, so that when I pull this skin down, ratchet this skin around like this with the ratchet straps, it's not going to bend this overhanging edge. See how it overhangs at the edge? Don't want to be bending that, pulling that when I strap it down. I'd say putting the skin on the horizontal stabilizer was more intimidating than it was difficult. Initially just trying to strap it down with 4 of these, but I didn't really like how much the skin was flexing on either side, and I was worried that I was going to strap it down and be left with this obvious strap mark afterwards. So I cut out these strips of plywood from, funnily enough, part of the crate, and threw them across there under the straps, so that with the only 4 straps that I have, I could drag it down a little bit more consistently. And it looked like it worked quite well. Initially I was a little bit worried that I was going to bend the skin all the way around here and the holes weren't going to line up, and I was going to have a lot of difficulty getting them to line up, because you know how accurate can these pre-drilled holes in a skin that's being flexed around all these formed ribs. But the answer is quite accurate, it seems, because they've all lined up really without much issue. Here's what some of them look like. Oh, that one looks really good. That one, not so great. And that one, not so good. That one, pretty good. But what happens is when you start clecoing in, and these ones aren't quite so good, it'll just move them slightly, and then the ones next to them, you can drill them, cleco them, and then go back. And I find that they tend to sit in a bit better. But it should be nice and square without much twist. The building instructions say to put it on beams going this way, because of course it's at the moment sitting on all these clecos. But I didn't, and the manual's sort of insinuating that it's to keep it free from any twist, to have it on some flat beams. But I can't really see how I can get any twist, because all of these holes in the skin are pre-drilled and they'll all be square with each other. So when you wrap it round and match it up with the holes in the ribs, it'd be pretty hard for it to end up twisted. But nonetheless, looking down the end of it, just sighting down the end, you can see it's looking nice and straight and no obvious twist. In theory, it should be even just sitting on all the clecos like that. In theory, if every cleco is the same height like that, which it should be, then it will be flat anyway, because this bench, I went to great effort to make it flat so that I could do this kind of thing and have confidence in it. But yeah, check that out. Super tired now, but I've got the skin back off the skeleton after clecoing it on and drilling to final size all of the holes on both the top and the bottom. So now it's ready until, well, it's ready to deburr everything, the skins, all of that, and that's ready for when it gets riveted on, which might be a while because I have to prime it first, and my paint is not going to get dispatched till the 10th at least, so it might be a couple of days after that if everything goes well, and if things don't go well, a bit longer.